Hey everybody, this is Tony Tominick and
Sherry Spencer.
we're here to talk about an iconic home that's behind me here on the shores of Lake Erie. So Sherry, tell me a little bit about where we're going to go today.
Well, we're going to go to the Folger house, but first, you're the history guy.
Oh gosh.
Avon Lake, Mr. Avon Lake.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you a quiz.
Oh man. Okay.
Are you ready?
Can I open any books or no?
Nope.
Right,
nope. You got to pull this all out of your head. Okay.
Okay.
So that house behind you is the Folger house, built by Thomas Folger.
Mm-hmm.
Was Thomas Folger a descendant of the Folger coffee people?
Absolutely. They had coffee. We had coffee plants here in Avon Lake. And there was a guy in a donkey I saw one time. No, he wasn't. He wasn't part of the Folgers. Everybody asks that question, right?
Everybody. All right, here's your next question. Was Thomas Folger the first mayor of Avon Lake?
No, he wasn't the first mayor of Avon Lake. Why are you laughing at me? He was actually the mayor of Elyria.
I've heard people say that. So, you so far.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Got an A so far.
All right.
Okay. Are you ready? This is a tougher one.
Oh, gosh.
That building behind you is called the Folger home. Was that their home?
Well, depends on how you look at their home. Actually, they spent summers there. But I believe they actually lived in Elyria.
Okay. If you had a cottage on Middle Bass and you would go out there in the summertime and go fishing, would you consider that your home, or would you consider your Avon Lake house where you live?
If I had a cottage on Middle Bass, I wouldn't be sitting here right now talking to you. I'd be up on Middle Bass. But
okay. Well, I think your answer was correct, that it was not their home, it was their summer house. And in fact, in some newspapers, it was even referred to as their summer cottage.
now, it was a different time. Being in that house many, many times, it's really not that big in terms of, space. But if you had a little, Sears home that we talked about a few weeks back, this was a mansion.
Do you know what year it was built?
1902.
You are absolutely right. By Thomas Folger for his family.
And the Colombians that pick coffee.
Okay. But before we get to that, which we won't.
All right, good.
Let's talk a little bit about Thomas Folger, the man.
Okay.
First of all, I've heard people refer to him as a Ulysses S. Grant lookalike, and I would have to agree. What do you think?
Yeah, he's got a beard, and he's all the pictures are old. I never saw them standing side by side. Yeah, I think it's a good image, mental image.
Okay. But excuse me, but Thomas Folger did in fact serve in the Civil War. You knew that?
Yeah, a little bit. Tell me more.
Okay, well, he was 19 years old when he enlisted in the Ohio Volunteer Infantry, and he served all 4 years. He did, in fact, see battle. He fought at Chancellorsville, Gettysburg, and Peters Mountain.
So is that the same OBI that's on Lake Road, Sheffield Lake?
Yeah, well, the same, Ohio Volunteer.
Because I think that was 102nd OBI, right?
I'm giving the quizzes here, not you.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to challenge your little brain there. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, we're not going to do that, are we?
No, we're not. No.
Anyway, he served all 4 years. And then after his discharge from the Army, he came back to this area, but he first lived in Cleveland. He worked with his father. He and his dad were involved in the grocery produce business. And then eventually, in around 1875, they moved out here to Avon Lake, became very involved with grape growing, and continued selling their produce. And
We had plenty of grapes around here, so he must have been one of the early, producers of grapes in this area.
he was one of the early producers of grapes, but more than that, he organized grape growers into an association and was able to coordinate sales and distribution so that it was to the mutual benefit of grape growers. For 14 years, he served as the manager of that association. And, I've seen some writings where they credit Thomas Folger for the great success that Avon Lake had in grape sales. Now, keep in mind, I'm not saying success in the growing of the grapes, because we had a large population of German immigrants who were very successful grape growers. So we take nothing away from them.
There's still 2 wineries in Avon Lake, right?
There are. So Thomas Folger, as I said, was working with his father. He and his father actually worked together their entire working lives until his dad retired, which I think is kind of neat.
Yeah.
But the whole family, grandma, grandpa, Thomas, his wife, and they had eventually 4 daughters, moved out here to Avon Lake. Right about 1875, they moved out here. They bought quite a few acres of land that they farmed in grapes. And as his daughters started getting a little bit older, he decided that Avon Lake was not the place for them to find the right mates.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff going on. If you remember, where probably a good move.
Yeah, so they moved to Elyria.
Yeah.
Where he felt his daughters could get a better education and hobnob in the right social circles.
So are you telling me that house was like a party house in the summertime for all those girls?
Yep, and their girlfriends.
Nice.
Wow. No, it wasn't quite all of that.
Okay, I just thought I'd throw that out.
So anyway, the daughters all did get married. They're all married very well, if that's what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And when he had that house constructed in 1902, his vision was a house where the entire family and all of the in-laws, his sons-in-law and his grandchildren could come in the summers and stay together up right on the lake.
Wasn't that property a little bigger then? I mean, wasn't there more space? Because it's kind of small right now. If he had all this, property, I think, he would have obviously more room for everybody.
Yeah, well, the house was not any bigger, but there was more property behind the house, which eventually got lost to Lake Erie. So the second floor of that house was actually constructed in...
I heard there was ghosts and stuff in that second floor.
Then you're hearing things. There's nothing. There are some sparrows and bird nests, and birds are very resourceful when it comes to nesting.
Ghosts?
No, they're birds. There's a big difference. Back to the construction of the second floor. Youngest daughter passed away in her teenage years, sadly. She died in a sledding accident. But the 3 remaining daughters, all married, had children. They would come back to the Folger house. Second floor actually had 3 somewhat self-contained living units in it. So each of them could have essentially their own little apartment when they came to the lake.
I dig what you're laying down.
So they did enjoy their house. They had a lot of fun there, picnics, invited families. They had gatherings. They had, they sounded like party people to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, I wish that would have been around then. I'm sure they would have been happy with me as a son-in-law.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you were sure they would invite you to the parties.
I don't know about that. I'm tough to take out in public.
So at any rate, they enjoyed their home for a while. Sadly, Thomas only got to enjoy it for 7 years. He died October 13th, 1909.
And he died in the house, and he's haunting it today.
Yes and no.
Okay.
Died in the house. Nobody's haunting it.
Okay.
Yeah, and Ghostbusters or whoever you are, we're not looking for you to come out and visit the Folger house.
Yeah, really. Well, have you got any last minute morsels of information for us?
Well, maybe one more thing about Thomas. When he was mayor, one of his primary duties was to hold mayor's court. And mayor's court, essentially, he fulfilled the position of judge for some of the misdemeanor type crimes people would come in for. He was remembered for being a real gentleman. To rich or poor, didn't make any difference. He was patient, he was compassionate, but he was a tough leader. He was everything that you would envision as a great leader. And sometimes he got creative in some of his sentencings. He got a lot of tramps through court, and the sentence would be leave town within 24 hours.
That's probably would have been the outcome of my life had I been strolling around at that time.
He also, I noticed, had absolutely no tolerance for people who abused animals. He had quite a few cases brought by the humane societies against people who mistreated their horses or neglected their horses. He was having none of that. So,
well, I've learned more about Thomas Folger than I think I ever knew, and I'm disappointed that he wasn't a coffee guy, because that's what everybody thinks, right? I'm also thrilled that to reconfirm to me that that was a party house back in the early 1900s. But I appreciate you sharing the story about Thomas Folger, Sherry. And this is Tony Tominick and
Sherry Spencer.
And thank you for joining us for yet one more A Minute of History or Two. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.